In Syria today, the slaughter continues. The dictator Bashar al-Assad seems out to destroy all opposition. His forces have surrounded the city of Homs, the center of the 11-month-old rebellion. For a sixth day, the army fired into the city. Rockets and mortars hit houses and mosques. Human rights groups say more than 60 people were killed just today. Hospitals are packed with wounded, including children. Syria has banned independent reporting, but our Clarissa Ward got in to tell the story of the rebels in one town fighting to overthrow the dictatorship.
They marched together carrying their dead on their shoulders, a steady stream of men united in grief and defiance. God is great, they cried. Give us revenge on Bashar. They honored not only the fallen, but also the bravest among them, who fought in a gun battle yesterday. When rebel fighters tried to overrun a Syrian army checkpoint, 4 men were killed, several others were injured. The funeral procession poured into the main square.
You can see behind me the entire community has gathered here to lay to rest 2 of the men who were killed in yesterday's fighting. They're chanting over and over again, "Heaven, open your doors to accept this shaheed or martyr."
Another, smaller body was carried in. Locals say this 10-year-old boy was killed in the crossfire. "Heaven loves the martyrs," the crowd shouted. The procession moved towards the burial ground, defiantly marching past a Syrian army camp. Armed rebel fighters walked alongside to offer protection, and snipers kept guard in high places all around. But as the last mourners were leaving, Syrian army tanks rolled in. Shots rang out. The streets emptied, and the fighters scrambled to get to safer ground. Life here now is a cycle of funerals and gun battles. Normal routines have been on hold for months. Schools are closed, garbage collection is done by overstretched volunteers, and the power supply is spotty.
Mobile does not work. Internet does not work.
The internet has been switched off for 3 days, he said. People here worry that cutting them off from the world is the first step in an all-out government assault on the city.
There is quite a lot of tension in the air tonight, Scott, because tomorrow is Friday, which is the day when most of the protests and most of the violence have taken place during this uprising. Regime forces have set up checkpoints in and around the city, and they're making it very difficult for people here to move around, not just rebel fighters, but also normal civilians.
We saw in your story the little boy that you described as a 10-year-old who lost his life. I wonder, how are civilians being killed in this conflict?
The civilians are really the people who are bearing the brunt of this entire conflict. That 10-year-old boy who you were referring to, locals told us that he was simply out playing. He was in the wrong place time and was shot in the head by a bullet. And this sort of a story is not an anomaly. This is very much run-of-the-mill. You hear these types of tragic tales almost every day.
Last year, when a similar thing was happening in Libya, of course, NATO came in with air power to help the rebels. There's no indication that that kind of thing would happen again now in Syria, but I wonder whether the people there have that kind of expectation.
Wherever we go, Scott, we are constantly asked by people, the minute they know we're a journalist, they ask us, why on earth is the international community not helping us? Why did the international community give Libya a no-fly zone, but they're not offering us the same kind of support? And they can't understand why it is that the international community is not rallying behind them in the same way and making sure that President Assad does not deploy his army's air power onto them.
Clarissa Ward, CBS News correspondent, reporting independently with the rebels in Syria. Thank you, Clarissa.